Good morning. My name is Jamie, and I can't play guitar. You are watching, and welcome to the Daily Hangout. It's July 3rd, 2023. We're hanging out. This is our daily excuse to hang out for at least half an hour and learn how to play guitar, because like we said, I can't play guitar. So, what we do here typically every day is watch some videos. Sometimes, like this morning, we're going to go over some news first, and after that, we will go and watch some videos that we have queued up. We're going to pull them up on the screen here. And here's our schedule for the day. We are going to do the news. Trigger warning. There is some violent news, unfortunately, this weekend. So, gun violence, unfortunately, trigger warning for the news. If that triggers you, you can skip ahead. We'll try and post it once this is finished recording. We will try and mark it so you can skip ahead if you'd like. However, we're not going to go into any kind of gory details or show anything like that. So, mild trigger warning there. And, should be over in about 15-20 minutes if you want to skip ahead to just the good times videos and no news. We will be watching PBS NewsHour, so I guess it's actually about 26 minutes. So, you can see in the bottom corner here, we've got our videos queued up. We'll go over the videos for the day. We're going to watch PBS NewsHour, and then there's some other videos. 3 injured, 2 killed after block party shooting in Baltimore. Trump crowd boos Lindsey Graham. I just want to watch that. And 4th of July storms, chance for heavy rain. As far as the videos we're going to watch, When Gamers Kill, the Esport Murders by Waby WebSurf. That's a good one. Why Disney World Kinda Sucks by Big Tug. Pretty excited to watch that. Struthless, The Problem with Every Artist, The Stallion Theory, How Aimless Creativity Ruins Your Life. Again, by Struthless. I really like that channel. We've got How to Write Songs, the simple songwriting formula that changed everything for me. And Who is the Real Killer Mike by Signified B-Sides. And the 2005 radio scandal was a glorious mess by Bandsplaining. The Day It Rained Meat in Kentucky by Hugpies. And finally, the corniest Christian influencer with Andy King by Gunner TV. So we have a smorgasbord queued up here, and what we're going to do is go over to PBS NewsHour and get started. We will be playing guitar. If you have any questions, just hit us up in the chat. Let us know what you're doing this morning, what you're doing this holiday weekend. Happy Canada Day. Happy Independence Day to the Americans watching the broadcast, or people that like America, I guess. And happy Canada Day to all my Canadian comrades. I was up there for the Blue Jays loss, second straight loss, unfortunately, on Saturday, but we had a really good time in Toronto. I live in Buffalo, so it's pretty close. We went up just across the border and took the GO train in and had a great time, my wife and I, and my brother and his wife. We're all really good friends, so that was just a great time. They had like Canadian commandos rappelling into the stadium, all kinds of good shit. I got a free Bang Energy outside the stadium. Anyway, let's get started with PBS NewsHour, and without further ado, we will be working on the Guitar Method Book 1 by Hal Leonard, pages about 15 to 20 today. So if that's what you hear, first we're going to warm up with like some scales, tuning, all that good stuff. Hopefully you're good today and you're having a good weekend. Here's PBS NewsHour.
Tonight on PBS News Weekend, a look at the Supreme Court term that just ended and what it tells us about the court's future direction. Then a new documentary sheds light on the fast fashion industry and its exploitation of workers and environmental pollution. And my conversation with chess master and commentator Levy Rozman about the ancient game's booming popularity.
The entire culture and generation of chess has completely changed. I used to be embarrassed bringing chess trophies to school. I would get made fun of. That's not a thing anymore.
Major funding for PBS News Weekend has been provided by...
For 25 years, Consumer Cellular's goal has been to provide wireless service that helps people communicate and connect.
Fuck sponsors,
we offer a
we're not
variety of
sponsored. No sponsors are allowed here. Let's go.
and Friends of the News Hour.
Before we go too deep into it, I don't really have a favorite news broadcast. I like Philip DeFranco. There's some other First Thought as a decent news broadcast, but none of those have uploaded today, so we're just doing something so we don't have to condense the news ourselves, because we are the only person that does this broadcast. So that's why we're watching PBS, and it is a public broadcast service, so it's the closest thing the U.S. has that's a mainstream. I'm going to say this and put my foot in my mouth. I don't mind it. I think I'm aware of the bends, and they're easy to spot. So I prefer it over a lot of the other news networks.
This program was made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by contributions to your PBS
bent,
station from viewers like you.
I think they give a pretty objective view typically.
Thank you.
And they align with a lot of my values, so fuck it.
Good evening, I'm John Yang. A 4th of July weekend block party in Baltimore, Maryland late last night ended in chaos and tragedy as gunfire broke out just after midnight. 30 people were shot, at least 2 of them fatally. Some of the wounded are in critical condition. Baltimore police say the crime scene is extensive. So far, they've made no arrests. And there was another mass shooting overnight, this one at a Wichita, Kansas nightclub. 9 people were hurt there, 7 were shot, and 2 more were trampled in a rush to the exits. According to the Gun Violence Archive, there have been 338 incidents so far this year in which 4 or more people were shot. That's an average of nearly 2 a day. Across France, a 5th straight night of violent riots over the fatal police shooting of a 17-year-old of North African descent. Police said they arrested more than 700 protesters overnight. It's the worst rioting in France in years. The mayor of a Paris suburb says he was the target of an attempted murder. His home was rammed by a flaming car. He wasn't at home, but his wife and one of his children
He looks like a
were hurt.
Hemsworth brother.
French President Emmanuel Macron has gathered his top ministers this evening to discuss the crisis. And in Ukraine, a barrage of Russian drones rained down on Kyiv overnight. It was the first drone attack since Wagner mercenary chief Evgeny Prigozhin's rebellion more than a week ago. No one was hurt, and all the Iranian-made drones were shot down. It ended nearly 2 weeks of relative calm in the capital. There is fierce fighting to the south and east as Ukraine wages a counteroffensive. Still to come on PBS News Weekend.
If you're not aware, just Google Iranian drones. They're basically like a lawnmower with a bomb strapped to it. It's absolutely terrifying for the, not that any drone isn't, but it's a very specifically cheap and terrifying drone. I think they cost somewhere in the range of like $40,000. Fucking absolutely wild.
The real environmental and human cost of fast fashion, and why chess is surging in popularity among all ages.
This is PBS News Weekend from WETA Studios in Washington, home of the PBS News Hour, weeknights on PBS.
The The Supreme Court ended its term this past week with the 6-justice conservative supermajority flexing its muscles to make big changes in law and society, killing race-conscious college admissions, shelving President Biden's student loan forgiveness program, and siding with an evangelical Christian website designer who doesn't want to create websites for same-sex marriages. Big, bold steps. But looking at the entire term, there were times that the conservative justices made more incremental changes and even made alliances with their liberal colleagues. Marcia Coyle is the NewsHour's Supreme Court analyst. Marcia, so much of the headlines this term were about the justices' extracurricular activities.
That's right, John. This has not been a particularly good time for the Supreme Court. There were reports on lavish trips taken by Justices Thomas and Justice Alito. The fact that they did not disclose those trips as gifts or transportation really roused a lot of interest and a lot of dismay, particularly on Capitol Hill. There was an attempted assassination of Justice Kavanaugh. There were protests in front of the justices' homes, especially the conservative justices who overturned Roe v. Wade. So it was a tough time. All of this came together as well, bringing pressure on the court to adopt an ethics code and to do better in terms of disclosures on their financial reports, and also to be more transparent in terms of recusals. Justice Thomas in particular was targeted because of his failure to recuse in an election case out of Arizona that his own wife had worked on in terms of trying to overturn the 2020 election results. So I'm sure John Roberts, who cares very much about the image of the institution, was cringing throughout the summer as all this transpired.
The ideological split, 6 conservative justices on one side, the 3 liberal justices on another, did hold in a number of cases. The distinctions between those two sides really came out in some of the written opinions.
Absolutely. I think affirmative action was a good example. The student loan case was a good example. And even the case about the website designer who claimed her free speech rights were being violated if she had to create a website for same-sex couples when she wanted to expand her business to wedding websites. So we really did see some dramatic differences in how they view the issues that come before them. And much as, we said a year ago, this is still even though we're going to talk about maybe some alignments between the sides, this is still a very conservative, aggressive court.
But we did see cases in which some conservative justices sided with the liberal justices to give them a majority.
Absolutely. One of the biggest cases involved Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, a case out of Alabama involving redistricting. There was a lot of concern within the civil rights community about this case. The court had already imposed certain restrictions on Section 2, and there was fear that it would do more damage to Section 2 in this case, but it didn't happen. Instead, the Chief Justice, along with Justice Kavanaugh, joined the left side of the bench, and really a very strong affirmation of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act.
So much was made in Dobbs that the Chief Justice didn't join them in overturning Roe v. Wade, that he sort of had trouble, they said, sort of leading this court at that time. What does this look like after this term?
Well, I think most people would agree that the Chief Justice seemed to regain, if not control, more influence, but largely because he was able to bring along Justice Kavanaugh and the 3 justices on the left. Whether that's going to hold in future cases, so much depends on the cases that are on the docket and what they choose to take. And they have been choosing to take some very controversial, divisive cases. So I think we're just going to have to wait and see. But for this past term that just ended, the Chief Justice's a sort of preference to move incrementally, although his critics might call it, faux judicial restraint. I think that was the phrase Justice Scalia used once. He was able to do so in certain key areas.
This was also the first term for Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. What did we learn about her from watching her this term?
She is a voice to be reckoned with. She may not have the votes, but she will be heard. Her very first week on the court in the Alabama redistricting case, she just sort of sent a shot across the bow of the bench to Justice Thomas.
Good.
And she has called herself an originalist, and she made it clear that she did not see a colorblind constitution, which has been Justice Thomas's sort of mantra for decades now. She asks a lot of questions, and I think you can attribute some of it to the fact that she was a trial judge for 8 years. She managed a courtroom. To do that, you can't be a shrinking violet, and she clearly isn't.
The court is away for the summer now. They'll be back the first Monday in October. They've already taken some cases. What are they like?
I think the one that there will be a lot of attention to is Rahimi versus United States. That's a case that asks whether the federal law that prohibits someone who's subject to a domestic violence restraining order can have a gun.
Jesus
the lower
Christ.
federal appellate court struck down that provision, and
Okay. They're going to probably uphold that. If someone who has a prior domestic abuse can have a gun, we're going to see that case because it's super important, along with stripping away rights of any marginalized group that isn't white men. I understand I'm a white man saying this. That is like the full stop agenda of the current Supreme Court. Like, why weren't we hearing these cases? I know why. It's because the Supreme Court was packed with conservative co-opted judges from conservative alt-right billionaires. Not even alt-right, just fucking literal, like, lizard people that want the U.S. to just go back to, like, 1774. That's who got the courts packed. That's why we were so mad. Everyone except fucking Republicans were so mad while the courts were being taken over hostily, because, like, why are they even seeing any of these cases? If you have been alive for more than, at this point in 2023, you've been alive for more than 30 years, have you ever heard of them hearing any amount of consequential cases like this? It's absolutely ridiculous. Not only that they pack the court with conservative judges who are just going to vote in line with whatever agenda some Republican backroom billionaire group has on their docket, but also, like, why are they hearing so many consequential cases? Like, I would love for someone that's savvy on history of the Supreme Court to tell me when in time this many cases were ever brought up that were so consequential to such a large swath of the population within such a short time span. It is if they are, not as if they are absolutely just assaulting privileges on anyone except white, male, American-born citizens. It's disgusting. Oh, sorry, I got pretty angry there. Sorry.
The United States came to the Supreme Court with an appeal. And there's been a lot of trouble in the lower courts trying to apply Justice Thomas's standard under the Second Amendment for when gun restrictions can pass constitutional muster. And I think the court took this because it knows that, and it may have to provide a little more guidance on what to do with it.
They handed the new rule down just 2 years ago in the Bruen case.
They did, the last term. And also then there are a couple of cases that will be very important. The Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, there's a challenge to that that could pretty much end that bureau. And then the court is also going to look at an old doctrine that's called the Chevron doctrine about giving federal courts giving deference to agency decisions when they're trying to interpret an ambiguous statute that they enforce. That could have huge ramifications for federal regulation.
Marcia Coyle, you'll be watching it all. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, John.
100% of me has no confidence in the Supreme Court. 100%
It's easy to see the allure of fast fashion, affordable, trendy clothes that land in stores as soon as the style is in vogue. The industry is valued at over $100 billion. The brands are particularly popular with young consumers. But the industry is under scrutiny for poor working conditions and using cheap textiles that end up in landfills after only a few wears. Ali Rogan tells us how Chinese company Shein, which is one of the fastest growing fast fashion brands in the world, is trying to repair its public image and the reaction to it.
Recently, Shein invited a group of influencers from the video sharing app TikTok on a paid trip to its so-called innovation factory in Guangzhou, China. The influencers posted glowingly about the company and the factory's conditions. But that is just one of the company's 6,000 factories. In its other facilities, Shein has faced accusations of worker abuse and of using materials linked to Uyghur slave labor. The company denies this. Journalist Iman Amrani investigated Shein in the documentary Inside the Shein Machine Untold.
If you want to take a day off or go back to your hometown, your wages will be deducted. This is completely unreasonable because there's no rest at all. I feel really, really tired, exhausted.
And Iman Amrani joins me now. Tell us more about the accusations that Shein faces.
So thank you for having me, Ali. We discovered that there were people who were working 18-hour days, which is against the law in China. It's also against Shein's code of conduct. People were given 1 day off a month, and many people came to the factory and lived nearby in these kind of dormitories, which meant they couldn't visit their families and they couldn't go back home very easily, or they would have their pay docked. There were other concerns about the fact that the environment was very pressured because
Chinese
the production level is so high and it's so fast. They have to make so many items of clothing and they have to work on commission. So it means that it's a very, very stressful environment to work in, and not one that I think most people would want to work in.
Before we get into this trip that recently happened that influencers have come under fire for, let's talk about the relationship between Shein and TikTok and other social media influencers. There's a very symbiotic relationship here.
Well,
this is always interesting how I'm just fascinated by how legacy media companies like PBS, MSNBC, and the like are covering social media and treating it absolutely legitimately. You can see, there's constantly news stories about it and the way it's interwoven. I don't even have that much of an opinion on what I want to happen. I'm just kind of edging my seat to see what's going to happen with legacy media versus new media colliding, and it's really going to be I think it's going to be a while before things shake out. TikTok is still figuring out its footing. I think this is the first few, this year is the first time since TikTok popped off where it's been a little shaky, and we've seen YouTube adjusting, Instagram and Facebook floundering, Meta, whatever it's called, floundering. So it'll be fascinating, but I really like how legacy media companies have been covering more recently, I guess in the past year or two, social media platforms like TikTok, Instagram, as if they are legitimate, because I think they've finally come around to see they're sort of more parallel than perpendicular, if anything, and they're all just different media streams. I think as these legacy media companies have been adapting to new media, it's interesting to see how their reporting on it has changed over time and has helped actually legitimize new media. I think it's a smart move on their part to kind of handshake with new media, and it's cool to see, because I think continuation of these brands, if they could get again, PBS not bad as far as their bend, the bend is easy to identify. You kind of know how they're holding their cards. They kind of put them on the table, but some of the other legacy media companies like NBC God forbid Fox could iron out some of their ridiculous bends and just report a little bit more factually. Same thing with NBC and CSNBC and stuff like that. CNBC. If they could iron out a little bit of their, team side-taking team mentality, I guess, it would be interesting. So I'm kind of just rambling. I do need to use the restroom. I will be back in about 5 minutes, and we'll finish this, and then we'll move on to the esports murders. Hey everybody, we're back. Alright, let's finish up this PBS NewsHour, and then we will jump into some other videos. Thanks for waiting.
Shein as a brand doesn't really have a face, as it were. So the influencers that it partners with become the face of the brand. Yeah. So they partner sometimes with micro-influencers, which are influencers with around 10,000 followers or less, who generate trust with their followers. Because it's a small community of followers, they feel very connected to those influencers. But the influencers who went on this trip, some of them have 500,000 or 1 million followers. So they really work with influencers across the spectrum, hoping that they will advertise to consumers that will spend money with them.
And now tell us a little bit more about the backlash that's happened to these influencers that went on this trip. It seems that the condition...
I think it's pretty obvious what they're talking about. They're talking about recent trending news. A bunch of influencers went to the Shein factory and basically just like lied about it. Everyone's mad.
That they spotlit in the videos that they produced, in the content that came out from the trip, was very different from the conditions that you and your colleagues uncovered in your documentary.
Yes, well, I was quite surprised when I saw the videos that were posted by these influencers, because I have seen the undercover footage that our journalist found, and it was interesting that when these influencers went, they were describing themselves as investigative journalists, jokingly, and saying that they were speaking to these workers who seemed very happy, but also didn't seem to be making many items of clothing. It looked like a showroom to me, the place that they were taken to, and as you have said in the introduction, there are many, many suppliers that make clothes for Shein. So I don't think it's actually very honest to try and portray this one factory as being a place where the clothes that people buy on the website are coming from.
Is it your understanding that other fast fashion companies also engage in these sort of tactics, or is Shein a bit of an outlier?
I would say that many clothing companies are engaging in similar tactics, but not to the extent that Shein is. Shein outstrips all other fast fashion brands. It is the biggest fast fashion brand in the world. It has more Google searches than Nike, for example. And I think that the point about the focus on Shein is because it is the biggest, it sets the tone. If it is engaging in really aggressive ways of making clothes and marketing to people, then other companies and other brands are going to feel like they need to compete with that by doing the same thing.
The influencers themselves have been coming under a lot of criticism for going on this trip and accepting Shein's spin without really challenging it. What do you make of that criticism?
I think that it's really unfair for this criticism to be laid at the feet of the influencers. The responsibility is with the brand. And as I say, the brand doesn't have a face, so the influencers become the face of the brand. And you end up with people arguing about the influencers and forgetting about the bigger picture here, which is about what the brand's practices are like. And I think it's also unfair to put influencers in this position. There is a reason why they don't invite journalists to come and have a tour of the factories. They invite influencers who operate in a clout economy. They are young people who are aspirational. They want to be seen to be fashionable and to be seen to be in demand. What I don't understand is why they didn't do their research in the first place, although I do think that now they've definitely had a backlash, and I think that we need to take a step back from that and keep focusing on the brand.
Some observers have also pointed out that Shein appeared to invite only a certain segment of the influencer community, particularly those from underrepresented groups. There was a plus-size influencer. There were a few women of color on the trip. What do you make of that observation?
I think that they are very savvy about audiences. They know that young people are more into accessibility in fashion and they want representation. And I also think that by using minority influencers or people who are underrepresented in the fashion industry, it means that we can have these arguments. We talk about the fact that it is difficult to buy clothes that fit plus-size women. But that isn't the focus here. The focus here is about the practices. And yes, all women should be able to buy clothes that make them feel comfortable. But it shouldn't be at the expense of people who are working in factories and having to make those clothes.
Absolutely. Journalist Iman Amrani, the documentarian behind Inside the Shein Machine Untold. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
In our weekend spotlight is a centuries-old game that's enjoying new popularity with young people. It's chess. After the 2020 Netflix drama, The Queen's Gambit, the game saw its biggest boon in the United States since American Bobby Fischer won the 1972 World Chess Championship. Chess club memberships are soaring, and earlier this year, Chess.com's servers overloaded when it had the most active users ever. The renewed interest has created demand for other online content. Levi Rozman is one of those providing it. His YouTube channel, Gotham Chess, has the most subscribers of any YouTube chess channel. And his new book, How to Win at Chess, The Ultimate Guide for Beginners and Beyond, is out this fall. Levi, you are an international master.
Yes.
Is that right? What does that mean?
International Master is the second highest title you can have in the chess world, and I guess internationally, for lack of a better word. The title
like
above mine is Grandmaster, which is the title that everyone aspires to. I stopped at International Master because I frankly never even thought I would get it. So when I got it, it was a huge adrenaline dump for me, and I was very happily going back to my university studies.
How did you get involved in chess, or how did you start playing chess, and what was the appeal?
Both sides of my family, moms and dads, are from the former Soviet Union, so it's ingrained there in the culture for sure. And there's a very funny story. My parents were trying to sign me up for after-school classes when I was 5. My mom said chess. My dad said art. He's too crazy for chess. And it turns out that my mom was actually right, because I became completely obsessed with the game, but I ran from art class. I would hide in the playground tubes. I played my first tournament when I was 7, and I just played ever since.
What do you think accounts for the popularity in the United States now? We talked a little bit about the Queen's Gambit, but it's still becoming more and more popular.
Yeah, so I would say, first of all, how much time do we have? But we've had 3 big booms, right? In 2020, Queen's Gambit happened. And right around that time, I had decided to make content full-time. So that meant YouTube videos, some live streaming, but it wasn't a big deal until Queen's Gambit came. My view count on YouTube went from about 70,000 in a 48-hour window to 1 million. And that just kept happening because somebody would watch the Queen's Gambit trailer, and on the sidebar it would say, How to Play the Queen's Gambit by Gotham Chess. A video that I made with a little potato of a webcam, never thought much of, but it just blew up. Then in 2022 we had the cheating scandal, which you can make a story on its own about. And now it's skewed to the younger audience through short-form content. So I'm talking about TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, bite-sized chess content. Now you can just scroll on your phone and you learn something about chess in 30 seconds. And then you go try it against a friend. So the entire culture and generation of chess has completely changed. I used to be embarrassed bringing chess trophies to school. I would get made fun of. That's not a thing anymore. On the airport coming here, a group of 7th graders recognized me, and I've never seen kids that excited.
Most people say it is among the big boom is in middle school and high school.
Yeah.
Why that age group? Why do you think that is?
Definitely recently, that has been the age group, but over the last few years, it's been people who learned it in childhood, didn't play it for 30, 40 years, and they're now playing it again. Reconnecting with a relative, with a father, grandfather, grandmother. I mean, it goes across generations. The young audience really enjoys it, I think, because first of all, they enjoy gaming, period. There's something different about chess. It's not just a one-on-one game where you mash a controller or learn some, little trick. There's never been a better time to learn the game, whether online or print. It used to be really hard to access this information. You could watch something for 60 seconds, go try it, and you're like, I'm the smart one in the friend group now, at least until the next person learns something.
You talk about playing online. I've seen people, or I know people, who if they're the 2 chess players in the same room and there's a board set up, they'd rather play on their phone against each other than sit down and play the game. Why do you think that is?
Well, I suppose it's also just a microcosm of general society, if you will. I mean, we're just a bit too comfortable on our phones nowadays. I gotta tell you, I enjoy playing speed games way more on my phone than I do live at parties or in tournaments. It's like 3-minute games, 1-minute games. I'm a monster on my phone. Put me in front of a person, there's psychology, there's nerves. You don't see the squares the same way you do. I mean, the last 3 years, you likely got into chess online. You didn't get into chess at your local club. So people are having a little bit bit of a tough time moving that skill to IRL, but it's still very popular. A lot of chess clubs at pubs, libraries, schools, so we'll get there.
IRL, in real life.
In real life. Apologies. Creator terminology. I have to mash everything into acronyms.
A lot of pro athletes are talking about playing chess. Joe Burrow, the Cincinnati Bengals quarterback who went to the Super Bowl, keeps a chessboard by his locker. He says it helps him read defenses on the football field. Are there other things that help if you learn to play chess that you can take
Burrow.
IRL in real life?
I think it's mildly overblown, but yes, I would say more in one-on-one endeavors like boxing, because you have to prepare for the opposition. Your opponent has tendencies, positions they like to get to, whether they use the left or the right, southpaw, orthodox. But the same goes for football formations, I would imagine. I don't know a huge amount about football specifically, but basketball, how do you break down a defense? And a lot of athletes do like chess, and for good reason, because it does get your brain thinking in a much more, if this, then this, well then I'll do this, but what if they do that kind of a way? But I would say the short answer is yes. There's a lot of overlap between athletics and kind of this forward thinking in chess.
Your book is subtitled The Ultimate Guide for Beginners and Beyond. Who do you think would most benefit from the book? A beginner or someone who's sort of trying to move up to the next level?
Over the last few years, I've been asked this question probably 1,000 times, which is, do you have a chess book recommendation? Okay, there's all this YouTube, all this online. I just want a book. Give me a good book. There is no good one answer. There doesn't have to be one answer. Could be 2 or 3. But I decided to write this book so you could read it 15 minutes before bed, while laying on the couch, while relaxing. You don't need a physical board to guide you along. But the book guides you by the arm through all things chess. And I think it's a really refreshing read, because a lot of chess books that were purchased by people like myself included are hard to finish. You need the board, you need hours of practice. They skip from one diagram to the second and 6 moves happened. And if you're not at that level, it's very difficult to read. So just like chess has had a revolution in online and digital content, this was my idea with the book. I'm not dumbing down the subject. I think I'm just making it a bit more refreshing.
Levy Rozman, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that is PBS News Weekend for this Sunday.
Okay, so next up we have, what should we tee up? The esports murders. Why Disney World kind of sucks. I think we're going to play this one first. Let's do it.
It's a little weird thing. Oh, what's that? Oh, it's the pot calling. They're saying something. So, I want to make a few things clear. Number one, I am a Disney adult, but not like a hardcore Disney adult, like a closeted Disney adult. I don't talk about it in public. I have a little weird thing, and everyone has a little weird thing. Oh, what's that? Oh, it's the pot calling. They're saying something racist about the kettle. And before we get into this video, we're not going to be talking about Disneyland. Yes, it came first, and it's got a bunch of cool secrets in history, but it's small. I like big. This is small, I like big. As someone who's made a lot of good memories at Disney World, it is sad to see where the parks are at now. So I'd like to just take a second and explain why I think Disney World kind of sucks. Also, I went to Disney World a lot because my friend's parents were rich when I was a kid and they had a timeshare at Disney World. Not because my parents had a lot of money. The recession affected us deeply. My dad lost his job. I'm not wearing the mask anymore. I kept seeing myself in the camera and I was getting scared. But I just want to talk about some overarching reasons for why the park sucks, and then we'll go into the specifics later. Number one, overcrowding. You guys gotta leave. Too many people. You guys gotta go. It's just a mix of like a post-COVID boom of people trying to leave their houses, as well as brand new attractions, and you know, the mouse doesn't care. He doesn't care at all. He's just trying to get all the money. He doesn't care if the lines are all 3 hours long. He doesn't give a hoot. And overcrowding leads to, yes, long lines, but it also leads to me feeling absolutely not safe, because this is America, and large crowds of people attracts the crazies. I mean, it's already doing that. I mean, it's not good. I mean, the parks can't handle that many people. Last year at Hollywood Studios, or MGM, which is a way better name for it, the average wait time for lines was 75 minutes, and there's only like 9 real rides there. So if you wanted to ride every ride at MGM Studios or Hollywood Studios, wherever the you would have to spend 11 hours in line. And the park's only open for 12 hours. It's not working, Disney. It's not working, Mouse. And you might be thinking, oh, well, I'll just get a fast pass. You're a joke. You're an asshole for thinking that. I'm not going to dwell on this topic too much because we've all seen Shapeland USA. And if you haven't seen Shapeland USA, you're a dum-dum. Go watch that. But the old version of the Fast Pass used to be that it was free and you just kind of like walk up to a little booth and you get a ticket and they're like, you come back later and you'll have fun. And I was like, cool, that's awesome. Now you download an app called Genie Plus, and on that app you pay $15 per person to get into the lightning lanes. For a chance to get into the lightning lanes. Big emphasis on the chance because you might not even get the fast passes and you already paid $15. And the opportunity to buy the pass opens up at 7 in the morning, but it's not like, you know, come whenever. It's you got to get it fast and you have to wait 2 hours to get another pass. And by then, all the good rides are taken up. So, you know, it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. I mean, I haven't been to the park in like 7 years and I can't afford to go now, but it's, you know, the idea of going to the park and that happening to me makes my penis shrink. So Disney World has like 5 parks, and it used to cost the same amount to go to each park, but now they have like dynamic pricing. So each park has a different price each day. It changes daily. So it could cost way more to go to Magic Kingdom than it could cost to go to Epcot. And I kind of get that because Epcot's doing its thing, which is nothing, but still, that's not fair. But Disney also changes it up in terms of like how many people are expected to show up that day. So you got to pick a day that's like a national tragedy or something so that you have less people showing up, and then you're just sad. You're wearing Mickey ears and thinking about 9/11. And this is all without talking about like the merchandising and the extra fees and all that bullshit, but we'll talk about that later. Working at Disney seems like hell. A lot of like college interns sign up for this, but it seems like hell. There's so many weird little rules you have to follow if you're walking around being a cast member, aka unpaid employee. A man can have a mustache or a beard, but the beard has to be exactly 1 inch long. It can't be shorter or longer. Stubble doesn't work. No piercings, no tattoos, no unnatural hair color. So if you got like rainbow hair, you gotta, you know, wash that out before you sign up. Who knew working at Disney World would have Jewish cemetery rules? But the worst part about all this is that you can't break the magic, which means you have to be a happy-go-lucky nerd the entire time, unless you work at Tower of Terror, which I've heard they all love working there because you get to frown the whole time. But besides that, you have to be unnaturally happy, even if the worst shit is happening to you. Welcome to the parks, everybody. Let's see how long it takes for someone to call me a slur. Oh, little buddy, looks like you spilled something. Oh no, that's piss. You're currently pissing on me. Okay, well, I'm gonna be standing in the sun for 14 hours, so, you know, I could use a little sprinkle. Ma'am, you have to smoke cigarettes in the designated smoking area. Go fuck myself? Sounds like a pleasure. Where's Space Mountain? Well, it's just right ahead. It's the giant fucking mountain. Yes, sir, the Little Mermaid should be white. I can't legally disagree with you. Lucky for you, Disney hasn't changed a goddamn thing about the park, so all the Little Mermaids here are white as snow. You want the movie changed too? Well, boy howdy, as an unpaid intern, how about I just text the CEO and, you know, try and get time travel involved? Oh my gosh, you're here on Make-A-Wish? Is it contagious? Can you cough on me? Well, the hours are long and I'm not getting paid, but at least this is good experience on my resume, working in a theme park. I've been scammed.
One of my cousins worked at Disney and this tracks.
I've already said that other people at the park is the worst part about the park, but there's specific people that show up that ruin the experience. I mean, first off, you got the over-preparers who turn a vacation trip to the happiest place on earth to a miserable crawl. Listen, everyone goes to Disney World with a game plan, but that game plan always goes to shit whenever the mouse shoots the starter pistol and everyone rushes the gates. Sometimes your fast pass isn't gonna work. Sometimes you don't get to that special restaurant reservation where you pay $40 for a dumbass meal. Sometimes the toddler gets struck by a firework at the fireworks show. Things change. But you're just miserable to look at. I can tell you're ruining your family's vacation, and the mouse is laughing at you. He's laughing up in his castle, so just relax. And then there's always the unkempt teen who's trying to be the cool guy and not enjoy Disney. It's fun. It's fun. This is fun. You don't have to go on Into Small World. That ride sucks. Go on Space Mountain. That's fun. Rock and Roll Coaster? That thing rips. I understand that you want to make your parents as upset as possible by them spending a lot of money and you not being happy, but, you know, enjoy yourself a little bit, because it's embarrassing for me and you. And on that same vein, when I see children not having a fun time like normal kids, like they're having a little bit of fun, but then something goes wrong and they start crying, you are at Disney World, my guy. This is the best it's ever gonna get for you. And children have no concept of money, so I don't blame them, but like, you know, you just met Pluto. You're not gonna do that ever again. And when I'm in line for Haunted Mansion and I see a kid slapping his dad and crying because he's too afraid to go in, even though at the beginning of the line he said he wanted to do it, I wanna punch that child. I don't, because then I would not be able to go back to the park, but I would if I wasn't in the park. And worst of all is the Human Disney Trivia book. Shut up. Shut up. I have watched many a YouTube video about all the little tips, tricks, and secrets of every Disney park, and I enjoy that shit a lot, but I don't need you to tell me that. Don't need you to tell me that. If I go back to Disney and I hear the words Hidden Mickey come out of a nerd's mouth in line, that's a quick sock to the jaw. Just a quick pump. Just to let him know. No one wants to hear that. Did you know that the Haunted Mansion and the Pirates of the Caribbean ride are in the same universe? You can tell by the plot points in the first ride. Shut up. Oh my god. Makes me so mad. I love those facts, but not coming out of you. Come one, come all, it's time to play America's favorite game show, Guess That Obscene Price. We all know that Disney is expensive. That's like 50% of the brand. But what we don't know is how expensive it actually has gotten. Shit's gotten crazy. So let's go down the list and find out exactly how much you're getting screwed. A regular old bottle of Coke. How much would you spend on that? Probably $1 in any vending machine.
Like
Joke's on you, that's $5.
No.
You're paying $5 for Coke, something that is cheaper than water. But don't worry, if you're looking for a souvenir, you can get one of these dog shit refillable cups that cost $22. So, you know, they drive a hard bargain. How about a beautiful plastic tiara for your beautiful little princess? How much is that gonna run you? 20, 30, 40, 50, $60, $89. $89 for a plastic tiara. And you're gonna have to buy it because she's gonna cry. And you don't want to look like a bad parent.
Yeah.
God forbid. I also found this sweater. Take your guesses. $270. What the fuck's going on?
I was gonna say $150.
The fuck? So I'm gonna do some math now, and I'm not very good at that, so bear with me. So most people who go to Disney World.
When I was at, where was I last time? Busch Gardens in Tampa, they had a Game of Thrones chair at one of the gift shops that was $11,000 plus shipping. What?
Have a kid with them, so we're gonna calculate in a child. Let's call him the scam boy. And I'm in Chicago, so a flight from Chicago to Orlando on average is $326, so let's multiply that by 2. And we probably want to stay there for about 5 nights, and we need a hotel. We're not gonna stay outside of Disney because we will be crimed, so we're gonna go pick a moderate level hotel. We're not gonna stay at Pop Century because we will be crimed. So let's say this one for $300 a night, so that's another $1,500. And I told you the park prices are weird, and I had to average some shit out, but 5-day passes for me and a child, it's looking like $1,000 for 5 days. And on average, to eat at Disney every day, it's going to cost an adult $82 and a child $48, and that's 5 days. And it's such dog shit food usually, but that's averaging out to be what, $650? Yeah, $650. So it averages out to be just under $3,500 for 2 people. For 5
that tracks.
Days. And it's
that,
not good anymore, so why would you do that? All right, so obviously I'm a little tiffed. Oh God, you can see my belly. Obviously I'm a little tiffed about the whole Disney thing right now, and I'm not gonna go for a very long time until they figure it out, and I don't think they are, because they're still making a shit ton of money. But at the end of the day, make your own choices, make your child happy, make sure you go between the ages of like 4 and 6 though, because they're not gonna remember anything before that fucking age. I think it's so weird people do that. But the next time you wanna bring your family on a trip and you wanna make it special, just go to Knott's Berry Farm, or Canopy Lake Park, or Lake Compounds. Holy shit, that park is so dope. Like, share, and subscribe. Share it with the homies. You know, share it with your Disney adult friends that can't get a fucking clue that you don't care that much. Everyone have a blessed one. I'm gonna try and grab my cat at the end of this video, but she's fucking crazy right now.
Good.
There we go. There we go. Okay.
All right. So Big Tug. We're gonna go subscribe.
It's a little weird thing. Oh, what's that? Oh, it's the pot calling. You're saying something racist about the kettle. And before we get into this video, we're not gonna be talking about Disneyland. Yes, it came first, and it's got a bunch of cool secrets in history, but it's small.
Channel
I like big.
Subscribed.
This is small. I like big. As someone who's made a lot of good memories at.
So, go subscribe to Big Tug, just like we did, and go watch that video in the background, even if you just watched it with us, and give it a like, because we demand it, and you just watch the video, so don't fuck them over. All right, next video is going to be Who is the Real Killer Mike by Signified B-Sides.
Killer Mike's new album is really, really good. It is, you know, it takes Killer Mike got to be like 45. He's older.
Give it a like.
And so
go
like,
subscribe to
you know,
Signified
I have this video idea that I'm gonna do eventually called The Politics of Dad.
Watch the video in the background.
And there's this really cool thing that's been happening over the last decade. Probably started with 444 with Jay-Z, where all these like significant, influential, older rappers are making rap albums that fit the phase in life that a lot of, you know, older millennial Gen X hip hop fans are in. They're talking about family. They're talking about loss. They're talking about health. They're talking about
being real.
Just all these, like, you know, growth, children, like things that, like, when you first encounter hip hop 20 years ago in the early 2000s and in the mid 90s, like, it was hype, it was gangster rap, it was, you know, shiny suit rap, it was the crunk and bling era, you know, Busta Rhymes' last album, like a bunch of these Nas albums, you know. And so this album fits very much into that dad rap mold. And it's also, the sounds are different. So Killer Mike, so I'm a OG Killer Mike fan, like way back with Action and Monster when he was still running around with Outkast and the Dungeon Family. So Killer Mike has had 3 careers. He starts out with Dungeon Family and Outkast as like the first artist of whatever. I don't remember the whole details, but he was like their first artist. He had this song called Action, which was like this huge hit. I never forget like strolling to that in undergrad. I actually met Killer Mike at a CD like event I used to work at Peppermint Music in West End Mall in undergrad, and he came through. You know, it was cool dude. This is 20 years ago now. So, you know, this is a younger Mike, right? And a younger me. And I don't know the full details of what happened with Dungeon Family and Purple Ribbon and all of that. But after his first album, his first album wasn't all that great. Nobody really remembers it. He went independent. And that's Killer Mike's second career. And that's when Killer Mike started to become Killer Mike, your favorite rapper's rapper. That's where I think a big part of his core fan base was born. Because that's when you get Reagan. That's when you put the pressure on him. That's when you get Ric Flair. He came up with 3 albums independently, and this is before independent music had hit its like current state, right? He put out I Press Release to the Grind 1, 2, and 3. He started Grind Time. He started his own label, Grind Time. To me, that was my favorite. That's my favorite era of Killer Mike. And then randomly, he connected with LP. LP is the greatest white rapper of all time. Whenever I get to the white rapper video, I will explain. But LP is the greatest white rapper, the greatest white figure in hip hop history, in my opinion. And somehow LP produced Killer Mike's his fifth album, RAP Music. This is where most of y'all met Killer Mike.
Yeah, this is the first time I saw it.
This is where he became a superstar, like overall. Okay, was rap music, RAP, and it was because LP has a sound that white hip hop fan, like the hardcore hip hop nerds who tend to be white, like just perfectly, like they love that sound. At the same time, LP was able to like make bangers that still worked with the Atlanta trap, that early trap era before trap became like all Young Thug, whatever. Right. That's Anthony Fantano. Shout out to Anthony Fantano. Anthony Fantano, I'm sure he heard Killer Mike's old stuff. Anthony Fantano's fan base became a big Killer Mike fan with rap music, RAP music. And so that starts Killer Mike's third era, the Run the Jewels era. So rap music is an amazing album. It treads the lines perfectly between like this, like, you know, hip hop nerd sound and aesthetic, but also like just hardcore, dirty South, trunk rattling, black ski mask, black Air Force energy, right? We'll get to it. We're gonna get to NRA spokesperson. Now, give me a second, because we're doing the music now. Because the conversation I want to have is like, who the fuck is Killer Mike for real? Which person that we've known for the last 20 years is the real Killer Mike, right? So and then after RAP music, after rap music, we get the Run the Jewels 1 through 4, which is probably one of the best runs of any hip hop group ever. And even though he started being more overtly political, anti-establishment, and arguably leftist in the I Pledge Allegiance to the Grind era, the Run the Jewels era is where that became very significant. Is where it rolls to the forefront. That's where he starts riding for Bernie Sanders, you know. Just all this stuff, right? But if we're fair to Killer Mike, the whole time, Killer Mike has been very much a pro-black centrist. And we just gave him more credit than he really earned in that regard. Lyrically, Killer Mike's anti-establishment content, Kill Your Masters, Reagan, all of that stuff, it's understandable why we adopted Mike to be this radical figure. But the whole time, Mike has also just been a rapper. If you're frustrated with me giving a lot of props to his music and to like not being like the most angry, like for all the people I've thrown shade at, like Killer Mike's Pull Your Pants Up take a little while ago bothered me, but that was actually something that went viral after being out for years. Conflict resolution, Michael. So when Michael, in 2020, when Mike stood in front of Atlanta and said, "Stop rioting," I didn't take a lot of issue with it. Because the reality is, Killer Mike is a rich rapper. And I don't expect successful rappers to be revolutionaries. I think we spend too much time and energy trying to dictate goodness through media consumption, through consumption, period. I think that's a really... I just find that to be a dead end.
I found that. I tried.
Because it just comes down to like
to be like.
It's impossible to be logically consistent.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's impossible to be consistent in general.
Like what you like. And
so you do what you want with the Killer Mike album. I enjoy it a lot.
Yeah.
That said,
especially music like that.
I want to get to the contradictions and like break down the critique that I have of Killer Mike and why I want people to like, not so much like do what you will with it, but recognize why more left-leaning people have the issue with Killer Mike that they have. So he has a song on this new album. He has several bars in this song. This song is a perfect distillation of like the conflict of a Killer Mike. Oh man, I have to. So here's the lyric, a lyric straight from In Rich. So In Rich is, I think, Killer Mike's political ethos and all the problems that we have with Killer Mike, like personified in a really good song. He says in the song, "I opened Greenwood to show niggas that we is more than sticking green under the beams in mama's wooden floor. And I know some secrets that Negro leaders will never know. I was in cahoots with spooks that sat by the door."
Oh, Jesus.
Right? So there's so much going on there. So I want to break this down part by part. He says, "I opened Greenwood Bank to show niggas that we more than selling drugs, et cetera, et cetera." So if you watch the Black Conservatives video, I talk about Killer Mike and Greenwood Bank for maybe 5-10 minutes in the hour and a half long video. And that whole section, the point of that section is to point out the folly of the conceit of this entire song, In Rich, which I'm assuming stands for Negro Rich or Nouveau Rich or Nigger Rich, which is this ethos of Black excellence, that what Black people need to do to fix our reality in this country is to amass wealth, and that Black capitalism and the amassment of Black wealth will allow us will fix all our problems, right? Let me go back to the rest of the history. I'm gonna go to the chorus. Video. The chorus goes like this: "Run up the millions, then build a village, then make your own rules. Fuck what they told you, don't let them own you," right? This sentiment is extremely seductive to Black political and social ethos, especially to Black people of privilege, the Black bourgeoisie, the talented 10th, all my homies that graduated HBCUs, all my homies in HBCUs right now, every nigga that was, one of the good ones, right? But shout out to UMU. You still a mod, right? Just making sure. Dang, why is this chat acting so ridiculous? Okay, cool. But That's not how this shit works. It's not. You know, that's not how it works. When Killer Mike becoming a millionaire does not have a very strong does not materially change the reality for black people. And the reality of capitalism is that everybody can't be a millionaire. In fact, the design of capitalism explicitly requires a set amount of people to be poor. And the added spice of structural systemic racism and white supremacy in America means that by design, the vast majority of poor people in this country will be black. To a disproportionate amount, I should say. A disproportionate amount of poor people in this country will be black. That is our role in capitalism. So you can bootstraps, build up your millions, get you an LLC, all you want to niggas. You will not change that reality for most black people, right? Now, this doesn't mean, and this is a critique that I want to be clear about. This doesn't mean when I sit down with my sons, when I sit down with my son's friends, when I was teaching, if I ever go back to teaching or doing lectures or whatever, if I'm talking to young black people and I'm trying to explain to them how to take care of themselves, I will say, you know, take care of your finances best you can. Try to save your money, yada, yada, yada. In private, direct conversation. But you are never gonna see the get you a LLC video from FD Signify. Because the reality is, if I'm talking to a crowd of 100 young black people, me telling them all how to get their finances in order is only really gonna be useful to 5 of them. So the other thing I'm gonna say is, you all should think about organizing. Have you thought about building a union? Have you joined your local political organizing campaign? Have you heard about what's going on in Cop City in Atlanta? You know what I'm saying? Like, the advice of do good in capitalism is not good advice. It's not good advice, one, because it doesn't really do anything. Like nobody doesn't know that. Nobody walks outside and says, I wonder if I can survive capitalism by not being good at it. Nobody doesn't know that shit. That's why whenever that shit is said publicly, it pisses me off, because it insinuates that black people don't know this shit already. Any African-American young person that's been in the school assembly in the last 15 years has heard the do good at capitalism speech, right?
Yeah,
and it's not even honest advice.
It's honestly just not.
There's much better advice we can give, but I can't talk about it on YouTube. So
yeah. I think the frustrating part is, like, it's terrible advice for marginalized groups. It's also just, like, terrible advice in general. It's, like, frustratingly bad advice to be like, just do good at capitalism, you'll be happy. I mean, you can try, but, like, don't marry yourself to that or you'll be miserable. Try and figure it out. Realize that money is fake. And, you know, hopefully you'll be okay. I'm unfortunately, well, I don't really have any good advice because, you know, I've not come from a place of intense struggle, but my one piece of good advice is everyone can and will probably get stressed about money, but remembering that money is fake, and people that work in finance, God love them for doing whatever the fuck they do, but you know, they have fantasy jobs. So next time you see, you know, that video, that YouTube channel, that guy's like calling out people's budgets, just know, like, you should be good with your money because it helps you not be miserable, but it's also fake and whatever.
But further, the idea that if a bunch of black people become millionaires, that they can collect together and advocate for black issues politically is also just statistically not true. It's
not true
historically not true and statistically impossible. Historically, when anybody has gotten money collectively as a population, they tend to self-segregate. That's the reality. I showed the video in the Black Conservatives video about the black folks in LA in the 60s and 70s that got their little money, moved to Los Angeles, and then tried to create barriers between them and the black proletariat, their black peers that they escaped from. And I can tell you now, having been a part of the black, let me be clear, let me be real, being a part of the black bourgeoisie, having been in school functions and dinners and game nights and shit with other bougie Negroes, well-educated Negroes, moneyed Negroes, I can tell you that the way a lot of niggas talk about their cousins from the other side of town, it's not revolutionary. It's not class solidarity. It's not. So even if like I'm pro reparations, but like I wouldn't be pro reparations right now, because the niggas they would give reparations to would sell the rest of us out so quick and then tell us they did it right. Like I could not.
I can't speak to black help. This is FD speaking to his anecdote here. I can't anecdotally speak to any kind of marginalized groups. I'm a white Canadian guy, but I think white Canadian cis man, I guess that's what we would call it. But what I can say is, class-wise, yeah, like, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, not in a lot of cases, in all cases, I grew up in an area of Buffalo where a lot of my classmates were extremely wealthy, if not like literally the parents of like local celebrities at our school. So they weren't trying to bring people of lower class into their friend group. It was kind of the like, you are who you hang out with, and don't hang out with poor people, basically, which is shitty. It's super shitty. I don't know how else to say it. It sucks. And what FD is basically saying is, like, in his experience, his community in Atlanta at the very least, and he's saying specifically his black community that he has experience with in Atlanta, is not like trying to bring each other up at the end of the day. When they get money, and we'll play and just let him say it, but it sounds like for the most part, they're insular, just like every other rich group of people. And I don't think that's exclusive to everyone, but like he said, it's very apparent that there's an otherness to people that didn't make it, sort of like the meritocracy lie, where they're like, well, I have money, they clearly don't know how to have it, and I'm going to keep mine over here with you because you know what you're doing. And if you ever fall off, watch out. So that sucks, because that's been my experience too. I've personally, for the last few years, been trying to advocate for just like class solidarity and, both financial and other legal policies to be passed. If you watch the earlier broadcast, like, I just want everyone to have the dignity that they deserve, and I think that financially, people that are hoarding their wealth are not part of that group that's trying to do that. It's sad. They may claim that they're compassionate or whatever, but in my experience, regardless of their status, if they're a minority, if they're a majority, if they are in an oppressive structure or a position of power, it seems like when people get money, they don't want anyone to take it, and they want to hang out with other people with money. And it's kind of like hang out with the kind of don't be the best person in the room, hang out with people that are better than you, so to speak, and which I don't think is necessarily bad surface advice. But when you take that into the financial realm and you say, like, I'm only gonna essentially hang out with financially well-off people because I have earned my financial position and the other people haven't, so I don't really want to spend time with them, have that rub off on me. It's not cool. It reeks of no class consciousness. You shouldn't care what someone does with their money as long as it's not hurting other people.
Everyone would be in position.
But when people hoard their money and make shitty decisions with it, it does hurt other people. So that's why I care about this.
To control and get reparations for black people, right now, the way our class consciousness is set up as a people, I'll be like, no, we're gonna wait for that. Let us organize a little more. Let us get our political education up a little more. Reparations in the 60s would have been dope. When black people were on a much more left, collective, anti-capitalist bend 60 years ago, reparations would have been dope. Yeah. Right now, Earn Your Leisure niggas, LLC niggas, Soft Life niggas, I wouldn't trust none of these niggas with reparations. Not in terms of like they're gonna waste their money, but they're gonna fuck the rest of black folks over. How do we fix that? We fix that through political education, but again, like, I ain't here to do that right now. So that's number one, is I just don't trust, I don't trust super rich niggas to do right by black people, because we see historically that they don't. They do okay by black people. But if you are a black college graduate and you've been at an HBCU cookout, whatever, just put an antenna up for the anti-blackness that you'll hear.
Antenna up.
Put an antenna up for it. Put an antenna up for how non-black educated lumpen proletariat type black folks are regarded and treated. So that's number one, is that I don't have trust in the black bourgeoisie, the talented attempt to really do that. The second thing is, again, shout out to Jared Ball at Black Power Media. So Dr. Ball wrote a book. It's called The Myth and Propaganda of Black Buying Power. It's short as hell. It's simple. It's less than 100 pages. It's less than 120 pages. And the whole book is dedicated to just breaking down. Logistically.
No, he's good.
He doesn't even spend a whole lot of time getting into like the philosophy of it, like all the arguments I just made. Just logistically, why this whole buy back the block, stack up your millions ethos is not a revolutionary agenda. It's not worthy of a revolutionary agenda. It'll help a few niggas. Please believe I'm trying to figure out how to stack my money and protect myself from capitalism.
Well, yeah.
I am.
I think we all should be.
I might open a business. I'm not gonna be a landlord. I'm not buying an apartment building, right? But I may figure out how to run some trucks, open up a coffee shop. You know, I gotta do something. There's no retirement in YouTube. There's no 401ks. And 401ks are still very much exploiting capitalism. You feel me? There's value on the individual level in being good at capitalism.
Yep, I agree.
That is not worthy of a revolutionary agenda. Niggas getting rich does not work. Further, even if Killer Mike of Kill Your Masters, Killer Mike was the real Killer Mike. If Killer Mike got next to Mayor Keisha Lance Bottom in 2020, and instead of saying, hey, y'all, go home, said, burn this motherfucker down, which I think is a lyric from one of his songs. Even if that was the real ethos of black people, that we were gonna use money to create a revolutionary politic agenda, it still would be logistically impossible. It wouldn't. There's not enough money out there, not enough money in the hands of black people or unclaimed by white people or any other part of our capitalist system to say we're gonna amass so much that we can dictate economic policy and political reality. That's just not realistic. I can't break it all down, but if you want to hear like the logistics of it, read the book. The short version is there ain't enough money out there. The amount of money that black people have access to, if we pooled it all together perfectly, it wouldn't amount to anything substantial. We don't have enough collective wealth. We missed that boat. It's over. It's a wrap. So when you hear Killer Mike and Charlamagne the God and, you know, all these rich entertainment niggas use that ethos, I don't want to call it a grift outright, although the Greenwood Bank gives me bad vibes. And I'll come back to that in a sec. Actually, let me do that. So Killer Mike, in that line, he says, I started Greenwood Bank. And don't get me wrong, like I know people that got Greenwood Bank. Greenwood Bank is probably doing good things for a handful of black folks who have access to capital, who have access to resources, that have a business idea, and they can give them a business loan, etc. That is happening, right? But that is not going to change the reality for the vast majority of black people. It's not. And the fact that Greenwood isn't a real bank, that the real bank is Coastal Banking Solutions or whatever the fuck it's called, which is a white bank, and Greenwood is just an app. Greenwood Bank is just an app. That's all it is. Essentially, it's fintech. It's an app that connects you essentially to another bank through their framework. And that means they get a cut. That means they can do some things, but it is not revolutionary. It's not kill your masters. So going back to where I was at a second ago, when you hear Killer Mike and these other folks talk about buying black as this revolutionary thing, you have to keep in mind that they own those things that they're asking you to buy. And that the only people truly benefiting from that at a large scale, because it's capitalism, are the owners of the means of production, the owners of those businesses. And here's the thing, I wouldn't take issue with that outright if they didn't position it and frame it as a revolutionary political act. Tell me, yo, I'm Killer Mike, I'm rapper such and such, I'm R&B singer such and such, and I made some dope shit and I want black people to support it. You know who I kind of fuck with? Pinky. Shout out to CAU. Right? This is Pinky Cole. Pinky Cole, no, not that Pinky. Oh, shit. My bad, y'all. Not that Pinky. Shout out to that Pinky too, but that's not the Pinky I'm talking about right now.
She like an adult actress?
Yeah,
if you know, you know. Yeah,
AUC
she's
alumni,
an adult actress.
CAU alumni, multi-millionaire off of Slutty Vegan. Slutty Vegan is a restaurant chain that she started, you know, last 10 or so years. It's a vegan restaurant. I've never eaten there.
That's not this
I'm
lady,
not a huge fan of vegan food.
Just to clear it up, the lady that's on screen is not an adult actress to my knowledge. Like, definitely not. She is like a businesswoman. There's another lady also called Pinky that is the name, like her actress name of an adult actress. I've seen her on porn sites before. That's it. Go look it up.
You know, but Pinky is really about her entrepreneur life, and she has at times dabbled in the, you know, the black excellence aesthetic, right? The revolutionary aesthetic, but overall, Pinky's just like, yo, I'm Pinky, my shit is dope, fuck with your girl. Pay your workers, okay? Because there's some concerns about stolen wages at one of her restaurants in New York or something. But you know, she's not like that. She's not over directly the restaurant. She's over the brand. We'll see. Hopefully, I don't have to do I was wrong about Pinky video in 10 years. But the whole point is that she's just like, again, I'm Pinky Cole. My shit is dope. Fuck with your girl. I'm cool. That's dope.
I like that.
But if she was to come through and say, I'm Pinky Cole, I'm about to start the revolution. To help start the revolution, come eat at Slutty Vegan. Then I'm like, Pinky, no, you stop doing that. Stop doing that. And what you see with a lot of these black bourgeois, talented tent folks is that they present their business venture as this, they brand it with that black excellence aesthetic, which I think is just regressive and toxic. And they present it as political action, as revolutionary action, as radical action. When they take their capitalism and they try to wrap it in revolution, that's when we have a problem. And that's my critique of Killer Mike. Killer Mike's revolutionary bars notwithstanding, it's how he keeps trying to compare his success in capitalism to actual revolutionary action. Killer Mike, if you've seen him in interviews, is talking about how he's in the spirit of Fred Hampton. He did a interview with some like white venture capitalist dudes and was talking about how Kwame Ture was supportive of capitalism in his later years because some other kind of bullshit. I don't know. It was real bad because it's co-opting political ideologies that have already been pushed out of the mainstream media in the first place. So that's my main problem, because it's the thing that frustrates me the most, and this is also self-report, is how radical black political ideology and aesthetics have been so successfully co-opted over the last couple of decades, so that things that we think are radical, when you sit back and you look at their elements and their core features, you realize they're just co-opted, reclaimed elements of capitalism. That is the critique of modern cultural Pan-Africanism, of hip hop's revolutionary capacity,
Makes sense.
So on and so forth. And so we have to be more critical of that, and we have to hold accountable. Like, listen to Killer Mike all you want, but understand that what Killer Mike is talking about is not revolutionary. What Killer Mike understands, and is either being very cynical or naive with, is that for the talented black folks, the black folks with access, the black folks who come from good backgrounds, that have opportunities, that benefited from mentors and have a rich uncle or a couple of educated uncles, went to the good schools, like all these things, like myself, like my children, like probably most of you, the vast majority of black folks in the chat, the vast majority of people that watch my content. I want to be very clear. Like, I made that video with that message because I wanted it to hit a specific population of people that ain't been hit yet. All this black excellence, black capitalism stuff can work for us. And it still ain't gonna work for all of us. It ain't gonna work for all of us, but it's much more likely to work for us than the next Killer Mike that has Killer Mike's background. Although I don't know about Killer Mike's like actual background. Because Killer Mike may have been middle class, whatever, I'm not sure.
Who knows?
Or insert other rapper from the SWATs. So we need to understand that. And we need to keep very critical of whenever somebody tries to present that ethos without that understanding, which is what Killer Mike is doing. So I don't know who the real Killer Mike is. Because the thing that I'll give credit to, and why I don't think this is a grift, is because this is a very normal way of thinking in black spaces, I at least from my experience and from my understanding. We've read all the books. We know the system. We have a strong racial analytical frame. We know the info on how capitalism works against us and how we can make it work for us in particular. We know these things. There's a lot of pro-black people that I truly believe and respect in terms of their politics. In fact, one of the things, going back again to Dr. Ball, he wrote, I don't know if it's in this book or something else that he wrote, that every major black political, almost not every, so many major black political thought leaders that we revere has at one point in time bit the black capitalism cookie, from Malcolm X to Martin, all of them. All of them have bit that cookie at one point in time because it makes sense until you look at the data, until you look at the analysis of the economics of the situation. And now that we know better, and now that we have an understanding that that is not a real venue for black progress at a massive scale, we need to be spending time and energy elsewhere. And that time and energy needs to be on actual organizing, direct engagement, dismantling capitalism, building a political apparatus that can challenge capitalism and white supremacy at its core, and not just provide a couple of spots for Negroes with good educations. You know, somebody said the only socialist rapper named No Name. Oh, shout out. Let me find this. I came across. If you want your radical hip hop itch scratched, man, do I have somebody for y'all? What was Infinity Knives, and I think the album is called King Cobra. Okay, yeah, that shit hit, and it hit the spot too. Right after I finished listening to Killer Mike to cleanse my palate, I popped that in. I was like, oh, the first 4 bars is like, fuck the Clintons, fuck the. Yeah, put it on the list. Put it on the list.
Yeah, I gotta want to
bring it back, hopefully full circle, because I completely lost my train of thought. I'm just trying to get across the fact that we will not LLC ourselves to liberation. And what Killer Mike is offering is essentially a distillation of that politic. And as much as I love this album, and as much as I love not just the songs like Reagan and Kill Your Masters and Put the Pressure on Them, and all the great radical music he's made, that is in one spot, and Killer Mike's actual political reality is in another. And it is what it is, you know? We have to get away from being so beholden to our media consumption in the first place. But very specifically, I just wanted to make sure, like, as we're trying to figure out what to do with Killer Mike is a centrist. He has radical inclinations and capitalist desires.
Cool. All right. Go subscribe to FT Signifier's channel, Signified B-Sides, and go watch with the sound off, or however you want, Who is the Real Killer Mike, and like the video as well, just like we did. We're gonna take a quick intermission. I gotta take a shower, freshen up, and it is Monday, July 3rd, so I think what we'll do is keep the stream going just on break, and we'll be back in about a half hour or less. So you can go get a snack, stretch your legs. We'll be back in a little bit. Yeah, half hour or less for sure. And then we'll see you then. Thanks. Hey everybody, we're back. Let's turn this guitar off because we're not going to use the guitar right now. We are back for the second part of the broadcast. Second part of the first broadcast it is. My name is Jamie. I can't play guitar. You are watching the Daily Hangout for July 3rd, 2023. We're going to watch some more videos. We're going to start with the 2005 radio scandal was a glorious mess by Bandsplaining. It's got Ludacris, Franz Ferdinand, Gorillaz, and Pearl Jam on the thumbnail. So we're gonna watch that and let's get it going. Let's see here. I think we could do this, and boom. Thanks for being here. We're gonna eat some breakfast.
Can you recall a time that a song was played constantly on the radio, and yet no one seemed to actually like it? I'm not talking about Who Let the Dogs Out.
No, people like
that song
like
slayed.
That. Yeah.
But their follow-up single, Move It Like This,
no one likes that song.
Well, in the mid-2000s, a ton of bands were caught, or rather, their labels were caught, paying for plays on the radio.
Payola, baby.
Something that's not only cringy and embarrassing, but also, in fact, illegal.
Still happens now. People just pay to get on playlists, so I'm sure he has a video about it.
2005 Payola scandal was one of the last great caught with your pants down moments for the music industry. Among the thousands of emails released by New York's Attorney General were glimpses of corruption.
If your station adds and accumulates 60 spins and Pat Green's guys like me, we will fly a station member plus one.
Desperation.
What do I have to do to get Audio Slave on WKSS this week? Whatever you can dream up, I can make it happen.
Deception.
Please make sure the callers are women 20 to 28 years old. And please make sure they don't get caught.
And greed.
You have room for a money record this week? 311 love song Big Money, Money, Money.
Even stranger is how little this scandal is talked about today, despite the fact that many of the bands involved are still active. Not that they necessarily knew what was going on, or could have stopped it if they wanted to. But hey, if we can't use the internet to poke fun at washed up bands from our childhood, then I don't know what it's even here for.
Audio Slave isn't washed up. Chris Cornell's dead.
To begin this story, we must take a time machine back to the early 2000s. A simpler time when having a turntable.
This is like peak music discovery for me. I was 15 in 2005, or 14. I was listening to lots of emo. I had started a band. I recorded at this point, so this was peak Jamie's music.
In a metal band just made sense when getting new music meant downloading from LimeWire overnight. And more to the point, a time when radio still mattered. Not just mattered, but was huge. Today, very few people use the radio to discover new music. But back then, it was a force. People had favorite DJs. They called in to request songs, or to win concert tickets and other prizes.
Hello, Rock 107. Am I the 107th caller?
And if you were from New York State, the early 2000s was also a time you heard a lot about this guy, Eliot Spitzer, then Attorney General of New York State.
Big baller.
Yes, a few years later, he would leave the governor's office in shame, his habit of visiting high-end prostitutes exposed. But back in 2004, he was something of a rock star. A bold civil servant standing up to Wall Street and corrupt corporations.
He was pretty dope otherwise.
As biographer Brooke A. Masters put it, when he ventured outside his downtown Manhattan office, he couldn't walk 2 blocks without being stopped by well-wishers who praised him for standing up to big business. Tipsters jammed his office phone lines with tales of woe and financial malfeasance.
My wife was telling me about this.
His investigations got results. Huge penalties from corporations brought the state much-needed funding and made him a rising star in the Democratic Party. So it may come as no surprise that, of all the attorney generals in the country, Eliot Spitzer was the one who noticed something fishy going on in the music business. In 2004, he subpoenaed the 4 major record companies. His office gained access to years' worth of emails, which were later partially released to the public. And what they revealed was the awful, salacious, dirty crime of Good Charlotte bribing radio stations with PlayStation games?
No.
Okay, so let's explain what all the fuss is about. The basis of this scandal was something called payola. Payola is defined as the practice of bribing someone to use their influence to promote a particular product or interest. It's basically what every influencer does, and we as a society are okay with that until it crosses in.
Payola typically specifically refers to the record industry and record companies, oftentimes through like shell companies or other hired PR firms would curry favor with broadcasters, first radio stations, TV stations, and now streaming platforms, and the people who make like Spotify playlists and stuff are now the target of that. So that's basically what, when you hear payola, that's typically what it refers to. It's kind of weird he mentioned it so broadly like that, as just like influencer marketing, because it's not, I don't think of payola as that. I guess it could be, but when you hear the word payola, it's almost always in relation to specifically payoffs from record companies funneled through other measures to get their songs through artists paid, basically. There's other ways to do it. There's bot farms now. There's other things like that, but it's basically paid inflation and paid spots for pay for play. I guess that's different than bot farms, but pay for play on radio spots, specifically like we will pay you or do something for you to play this song or / band, whatever. So I just was a little confused. Let's keep going.
Ethical line.
I mean, I've got this thing, and it's golden.
For example, let's say you're a janitor at a radio station, and one day on your way to work, a man in a trench coat gives you $100. In return, he wants you to slip a song into the daily rotation. If it happens once, no big deal. But if it happens again and again, people will start to notice.
It's not a big deal.
The listeners who are forced to hear subpar music, the radio station owner who is getting undercut, and the other bands who now can't get a foot in the door because all the airtime is bought up. Back in the 1950s, this became a major issue. So much so that the government had to step in and shut things down. They laid out a set of requirements that basically made payola illegal. And thus, quality radio programming thrived, and everyone lived happily ever after.
Yeah, right.
Of course
Record
not.
Scratch.
Being the ultra-competitive, no guts, no glory world that the music business is, record labels did everything they could to keep providing a steady stream of bribes.
Here, take this ounce and going home of cocaine. You take this, and I'll give you a call Tuesday.
If you're interested, we have a whole other video on this. But for now, we're going to fast forward back to the aughts.
The Grammy Awards reward the music industry's top artists, but New York State Attorney General Eliot Spitzer says record labels have been rewarding the radio stations that play their songs with bribes and cash.
Within these 300-odd pages of emails were messages sent between record label employees and radio stations, or internally between staff. Some were merely expense reports submitted to their bosses. They'd indicate what they purchased, for how much money, who it was for, and what they got in return. In this case, Toby Lightman ad means that the singer-songwriter was added to the radio station's playlist, WFLY. Or take this email that indicates $134 was paid for a Marriott hotel room in order to increase the number of spins or plays for the artist Jewel on WBBO.
Oh, she's pretty good though.
They were actually effectively buying space on the air.
They were buying space on the air and buying space on the charts.
Since payola was technically illegal, the record labels typically avoided sending straight cash. Instead, they'd pay for airfare, hotel rooms, Yankee tickets, IT bills, and laptops. During one strange promotion for the Killer Mike single, Adidas, Sony Music devised a plan to send a single Adidas sneaker to a number of disc jockeys.
Killer Mike.
Then, after a DJ
hilarious.
played the record at least 10 times, they would be sent the other...
Well, if you were watching earlier, we were watching an FD Signifier video that talked about how Killer Mike talks a lot of game about, burning down the patriarchy, but not the patriarchy, the establishment and, fuck capitalism and all that stuff, but direct example of the opposite of that happening, regardless of his intentions.
Match. Now, you might be thinking, a hotel room here, a laptop there, what's the big deal? Well, these little deals are just scratching the surface. Throughout these documents, you get a few hints at the true dollar amount being spent. One email mentions paying $4,000 to get Franz Ferdinand added to a single radio station. Another mentions spending $17,000 on Good Charlotte in a single week, a payment that only resulted in 250 plays, to the label's disappointment. Over $76,000 was spent one summer for the Christian rock band Pillar. Over $300,000 on one single for the girl group
Pillar.
Dream. And sure, maybe for those last two bands you're thinking, who? The bands who needed payola tended not to be the most successful. But there were also a lot of big names in these emails that will make you scratch your head.
I don't understand.
There's an email from a Virgin Records employee that outlines how much they're paying radio stations to play the new single from Blur, Crazy Beat. The amount varying depending on the station's size. Or take the case of Pearl Jam, whose label, Epic Records, spent a whopping $250,000 on a payola scheme that didn't even work. Back in 2003, Pearl Jam were just past their glory days of the 90s and struggling to get airplay for their new album, Riot Act. To remedy that, the band agreed to play a show at Orlando's House of Blues, where lucky fans would be flown in to see them in a close-up, intimate setting.
Oh, it's sad.
The tickets were given to 18 radio stations, who would award them to listeners during on-air contests. It was a win-win deal. A huge free promo for the radio stations and extra airplay for the band. That is, assuming the radio stations held up their end of the bargain. As the email from Epic Records went, we were promised a minimum of 6 weeks of heavy promotion and airplay leading up to this club show. However, the actual airplay numbers were dismal at best. One LA radio station had played the new tracks a mere 6 times, and they were receiving 100 free tickets with airfare. The email concludes, "It seems to be a big waste of time and money, and I feel bad that I even talked the band into it."
Holy shit. Thanks,
This brings
Kelly.
us to
Kelly's
another
fucked.
point about these emails. A big part of what's so entertaining about them is seeing these bigwigs get humbled.
Yeah, they're
Bands
floundering.
who seemed so effortlessly cool and popular, in fact, needed an army of promoters to fight for each and every spin.
Everyone must bear down. 19-2000 had a rough Thursday yesterday.
Fix WBLI now. We did not pay for that goddamn promotion of the Video Music Awards for 1 spin a day.
There's Universal Music employees lamenting how difficult it is to buy spins for Newfound Glory because they are, quote, not an A-level act to modern rock radio. Ouch.
That was a good song.
Coming from your own label, too. There's
Ouch,
Virgin
man.
Records telling a radio station, and I'm paraphrasing here, hey, you guys didn't play the new Nerd single enough times, so we aren't going to pay you. Yes, we realize it was a flop, but you still should have played it. Thanks, Rick.
No.
There's the sheer number of times that Good Charlotte gets mentioned. Their record label, Sony Music, had to give out plane tickets, DVD players, Disney vacations,
DVD
meet and
players.
greets,
That's awesome.
bill backs, and of course the aforementioned PS2 games.
PS2 is so good.
One email acknowledges that the program director at WKSE, quote, hates Good Charlotte, but still agreed to give the band some spins during the overnight hours. Good enough to fool the charts, even if no one's listening. Okay guys, quick pause here, and I promise this is not an ad break. I just want to give a shout out to our animator. You can check out his stuff at Party Coletta on Instagram. Also, if you're enjoying this video, check out the rest of the channel for more deep dives into cool genres and weird
Party
music
Coletta.
history. If you find yourself craving even more, we have a Patreon with more videos and features. And back to the story.
Okay.
Perhaps the best example of record labels revealing their desperation was when they paid for fake call-in campaigns. For example, if you thought you heard DMX's Where's the Hood At a lot in August 2003, that might be because Universal Music paid a team of people to call radio stations across the country and request the tune. They were hired to do this 30 times per week for 6 weeks at 59 different radio stations. That's a lot of phone calls. What's also amusing is how the gender, age, and ethnicity of callers was specifically requested. For Ashanti, it was females aged 18 to 24, all black. For Norah Jones, it was simply women 20 to 28 years old.
Norah Jones, look at her
For
guitar,
Ludacris, it was mostly women with a few dudes thrown in for good measure. And for Brie Larson, it was, hang on a second, 11 to 13-year-old girls?
Wait, Brie
Doesn't that
Larson
violate
was a
child
pop
labor
star?
laws?
I didn't realize
And I'm
that.
sure some of you are thinking, okay, so the major record labels were slimy. Big deal. I don't even listen to pop radio. I listen to the cool stuff that Bandsplaining recommends on his Patreon.
Yeah, of course.
And hey, perfectly valid response. But before you walk away, let me tell you about one particularly dark chapter. After the initial revelations came out, the independent record label TSR Records opened a lawsuit against the majors. They claimed that, in addition to paying for airplay, the major labels had essentially created a cartel that kept smaller labels off the radio.
Yeah, well, it's pretty much.
TSR Records was a mom-and-pop operation. They got their start in the early 80s releasing dance and techno music. By the 2000s, their biggest artist was the indie rock band Get Set Go, who were flying high after their song Break Your Heart was featured on Grey's Anatomy.
I am naked in the shower. I'm gonna break your heart.
That's awesome.
But while the song was a hit on college radio, it was effectively locked out from commercial stations, at least according to label owner Tom Hayden. Now, I'll let you judge for yourself whether or not Get Set Go could have been the next Bowling for Soup. But as far as the courts were concerned, there was merit to the lawsuit. The judge denied Sony's motion to dismiss, and after a few years of litigation, it was settled out of court. I asked Mr. Hayden if he could share details about the trial, but he informed me that, as part of the settlement agreement, he could not speak any further. We unfortunately may never know what additional evidence came to light.
Well, that's
but I think this
fucking
points to a
convenient.
much more sinister aspect of payola. It's not just about Josh Groban giving out gift cards to Medell's Sporting Goods. It's about how this causes smaller labels to get systematically shut out.
Everyone didn't like that song.
When you add it all up, there were 140 different bands and artists who were mentioned in at least one email. I'm not going to go as far as to say they all committed payola, in part because I really don't want to get sued. But frankly, some of the language is a bit vague. Employees are talking about hypothetical deals that we can't confirm actually happened. This DJ was given free tickets to the big memorial concert right after 9/11. Come on, Gary. That's like double wrong. When all was said and done, each of the record labels settled with the state of New York. $5 million for Warner, $3.75 million for EMI, $10 million for Sony, and $12 million for Universal. For a little context here, Universal had just under $6 billion in revenue that same year.
Jesus.
So this fine was only about 0.2% of that. The money was paid to the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors, who in turn distributed it to New York State charities. The record labels never admitted any wrongdoing. No employees or executives were charged. They merely acknowledged that some of their employees pursued, quote, improper promotion practices, and really super duper promised not to do it again.
Never again. We won't do
Now, in case you're wondering, payola is definitely still happening today. In fact, it has evolved to cover the world of Spotify playlists.
Yeah, there we go.
But I'll let you peep our other video if you want to hear all about that. Alright, nostalgia trip over. Enjoy these closing memories, and don't forget to support the channel.
Okay, well, there's a lot to go, but we just wanted to come back and finish up with one video. That's pretty much gonna be it for the day for us. We wanted to let you know that if you wanted to watch any of those videos, or any of the videos we planned on watching, we might watch them in the next broadcast, but you're free to watch them in the description below this on YouTube. Just subscribe and hit the bell notification to gain access to these videos, and it'll be in the description. Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope you're well today. Have a good Independence Day weekend, if that's your thing.